Hello and welcome to this lecture on food packaging claims. Now this is one of my favorite lectures. I think this stuff is really fun because you've learned about the food label and that's kind of the table of contents of what's actually in the food, okay? But all the stuff surrounding the package, what's on the front, okay, how it's marketed, what sort of claims it makes, that's all the advertising, okay? That's like the title of the book. You're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but people buy foods based on what sort of claims that this food can make. Now, there are some guidelines about what manufacturers can use to make claims. You cannot say that your cereal cures cancer, okay? But if they had the opportunity to, there's some cereal companies out there who would claim that. So we're going to look closely at things called nutrient claims, health claims, and then lastly, what are called structure function claims. And just so you know, these are all things that the FDA has approved, the Food and Drug Administration. That's the U.S. government agency responsible for regulating claims about food, either from the food label or on the front or the side of the packaging. Okay, now there's some info you have to have on your package. This is Healthy Choice chicken noodle soup. Statement of identity. If it's beef broccoli soup, you can't call it chicken noodle soup. The contents of the package, how much is in there. The ingredient list. Okay, and guys, ingredients are listed in the ingredient list in order by weight. So whatever ingredient shows up first, that constitutes the greatest percentage by weight. So if the first thing is sugar, okay, in your cereal, you'll probably want to go pick another cereal. If sugar's at the bottom of the list, not that bad. They also have the name of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor, as well as the nutrition information in that nutrition facts panel that you have already learned about. Okay, so as far as food packaging claims, there's three types, and I covered them in the outline, but these are nutrient claims, health claims, and structure function claims, and we're going to learn a little bit about the differences in each of them. Okay. Now, in general, there are some terms that the FDA says you can use, okay? I'm not going to go through all of them. You can download the slides and make sure you have access to them so you know what the general claims are. But let's say you're looking at a granola bar and it says this is a good source of fiber. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means if you're making a claim about fiber and you're calling it a good source, that one granola bar has to contain between 10 to 19% of the daily value. Okay, now that same granola bar, if it has 20% or more of the daily value, can call itself high in. So my granola bar is high in fiber. Now, to the untrained individual, high in or good source of course, sounds the same. Okay, so make sure you download these slides and you go through the different nutrient claims so that you know what light, what healthy, what fresh means, because there actually are supposed to be definitions behind each of these. And on the packaging, food manufacturers are usually pretty true to these claims, but once they get in commercials, etc., they sometimes stray away from them. Okay, so let's compare some calories per serving. We've got two types of soups here. Progresso, traditional chicken noodle soup, and then their light chicken noodle soup, okay? What does light mean, okay? Light, if we go back, sorry, I'm gonna go back 2 slides. Light says a third less calories or half the fat of the regular version. Okay, if we're talking about sodium, it has to have half the sodium in order to be light in sodium. But it also means color and texture. For example, light brown sugar is just a lighter color than dark brown sugar. Some people think it has less calories. It doesn't. Okay, so when we're talking about calories, you have to have a third of the calories or less. So if we're looking at this chicken noodle soup, the one on the right has a third less calories than the one on the left. That's why it's allowed to be called light. You're comparing it to the standard reference one, which you see on the left. All right, about fat and cholesterol, okay? Fat-free was all the huge rage in the 1990s. If something is fat-free, it has to have less than a half a gram of fat per serving. If something is low-fat, 3 grams of fat or less per serving, okay? Those sometimes sound the same, but they actually mean something different. Okay, so look at the Twizzlers, okay? Twizzlers, is this a low-fat food? Okay, well, low-fat is 3 grams of fat or less, and of course Twizzlers are made out of pure sugar, so it's not surprising to see there's a half a gram of fat. Okay, but look at, it says on the left of that package, as always, a low-fat candy. Well, of course there's no fat in Twizzlers, but if you eat too many Twizzlers, you're going to get fat because of the high amount of carbohydrate, i.e. sugar in that food. Okay, trans fat free is another one. I put it in red on this slide because it's a little bit tricky, okay? But in 2006, the FDA revised the food label, okay, based on pressure from a group called the Center for Science and the Public Interest, who said, listen, trans fats are bad for us. We shouldn't be eating that much of them. Why aren't they on the food label? Okay, prior to '06, you would have to go down to the ingredient list, look at the word hydrogenated oil, know that that meant trans fat, know that trans fats raised your LDL, okay, and then know not to eat that food. Okay, there is a term now for trans fat free, less than a half a gram of trans fat and less than a half a gram of saturated fat per serving. Okay, so let's check out this Haagen-Dazs vanilla bean ice cream. Okay, is this a trans fat-free food? Okay, per serving, which is a half a cup, which is ridiculous because you know you eat that whole pint, which is 2 cups / 4 servings. Okay, but in a half a cup of serving, there's 10 grams of saturated fat. Okay, so even though there's only a half a gram of saturated fat on the front of this, they could not call it a trans fat-free food. And that's because both trans fats and saturated fats raise our bad or our LDL cholesterol levels. Okay, so you can't call out that this has no trans fat because it has so much saturated fat. For the record, you're only supposed to have 20 grams of saturated fat in a day. If you ate this whole pint of ice cream, you would have 40. Okay, that would be 200% of your daily value from saturated fat. Okay, Haagen-Dazs is delicious, okay, but you don't need that much saturated fat. Okay, there's different claims on meat fat. Something is lean versus extra lean. Okay, we always want to try to get extra lean if we can. Okay, less total fat and less saturated fat. Okay, but lean meat is still a better option than some of the higher percentages of fat meat. Okay, lean means less than 10 grams of fat and less than 4 grams of saturated and trans combined, as well as less than 95 milligrams of cholesterol per serving. Of course, you don't need to memorize all this. You have access to the slides. It is kind of ridiculous. The point is to show you that the guidelines behind these claims are so complicated that your typical consumer has no idea what they actually mean. All right, so let's look at a brand, Jenny O. You've probably seen this in your grocery store. Her extra lean versus lean ground turkey. Okay, when you go to a restaurant and you eat a turkey burger, all right, unless you really like the way turkey burgers taste, don't kid yourself into thinking you're doing anything magical for your body, okay? Generally, a turkey burger will have just as much, if not saturated fat per serving, than a hamburger. It's because they grind up all the dark meat and the skin in a turkey burger, okay? If you want to have a leaner burger, go buy yourself the extra lean or lean turkey breast at home and make your own burgers, okay? You can see the total fat and the saturated fat, okay, in the circled red circles there from the nutrition facts panels, match up with the definitions given on the previous slide, okay, for calling your product extra lean or calling your product lean. There's a difference. Extra lean would be a better option if you're looking to minimize saturated fat. Now, there's less fat in there, so it's probably not going to taste as good. You have to work on appropriate cookery methods in order to get these lean meats to actually taste good, so they're not dried out. Right? Nutrient claims about energy. If something is low calorie, that means there's 40 calories or less per serving. If it's calorie free, there's less than 5 calories per serving. You sometimes see that on things like Crystal Light. There'll be like 2 or 3 calories, but they can call it calorie free because it's less than 5 calories per serving. If something's reduced calories, there's 25% fewer calories than in their regular reference food. All right, so let's take a look at Jell-O. Okay, Jell-O, sugar-free Jell-O that is, contains 10 calories per serving. Okay, is this a low-calorie food? If we go back to the previous slide, 40 calories or less per serving is a low-calorie food. So yes, sugar-free Jell-O can call itself a low-calorie food. Fiber claims. Okay, I mentioned earlier, if something is a good source of fiber, it has to have 10 to 19% of your daily value. Okay, for fiber, since the daily value for fiber is 25 grams, that nets out to 2.5 to 4.9 grams per serving. Okay, so if you have a granola bar that has 2 grams of fiber per serving, you cannot say that's a good source of fiber. If it's high fiber, that has to be 20% of the daily value or more, which in the case of fiber, with the 25 gram daily value, if your granola bar has 5 grams of fiber or more, okay, and fits the definition of low or total fat, okay, then you can call it high fiber. More or added fiber is just 2.5 grams more than your standard reference. Okay, so if your crappy high sugar granola bar used to have 1 gram of fiber and now it has 4, since that's at least 2.5 more, you can say now with more fiber. Okay, so check out these Snap Pea Crisps. You've probably seen these. Okay, is this a good source of fiber or a high in fiber food? Okay, there are 4 grams of fiber. Okay, and since 4 grams is only 16% of the daily value, they can only say this is a good source of fiber. And if you look underneath the lightly salted black banner on the product, you'll see it says good source of fiber. Okay, and then it says 50% less fat down there with an asterisk. That's compared to regular potato chips, which is ironic because regular potato chips in no way taste like Snap Pea Crisps, okay? But they're saying, oh, we're a packaged salted snack food. But these are actually a pretty decent snack food if you think about it. Yeah, there's some oil in there, but there's only 50 milligrams of sodium, plus there's 4 grams of fiber and 5 grams of protein. You could do a lot worse with packaged snacks than the Snap Pea Crisps. Claims about sodium. Very confusing to consumers, okay? Low sodium means 140 milligrams or less per serving. But most of the foods that we eat, if they're making sodium claims, are going to be reduced sodium. Think about soy sauce. Soy sauce is liquid salt. Reduced sodium soy sauce just has 25% less salt than the liquid salt. It's not low sodium, but you hear people make that mistake all the time. Pass me the low sodium soy sauce. It's not low sodium. It's reduced sodium. It still has tons of sodium. Sodium free is less than 5 milligrams per serving, and very low sodium is 35 milligrams or less per serving. Okay, so check out these Triscuits, okay? Triscuit, as with Nabisco, knows that people don't like buying low-salt foods. So they play around with the lingo, okay? They call this hint of salt, okay? Is this a very low-sodium food, though? Okay, on the previous slide, I'll remind you, very low sodium means 35 milligrams or less. Okay, low sodium is 140 or less. But if you check out the nutrition facts panel, okay, a serving of the hint of salt Triscuits has 50 milligrams of sodium. Okay, they could call this, if they wanted to, low sodium, but they could not call it very low sodium because it falls under 140, but it's above 35. Now, they know people don't buy low sodium foods. Okay, so they call it hint of salt, which is, all right, it's a low sodium choice. There's some sodium in it, but it's less than some of the other foods that you might see out there. Okay, there are some FDA approved health claims. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's basically data to support the following associations. Okay, and this is 4 columns, but it should be like 2 columns. Like calcium is tied to osteoporosis and folate is tied to neural tube defects. So you could put something on your food product that had folate to say it's associated with a reduced risk of neural tube defects. Okay, soy protein is linked to reduced heart disease risk. Potassium is reduced to lower cases of hypertension and stroke. Eating more fiber and grains and fruits and vegetables has been linked to lower risks of cancer. Okay, but you can't say that soy protein reduces cancer risk because there's no FDA approved health claim for that. Okay, there's also the 3 types of packaging claims. I just want to kind of sum up for you before I finish with structure function claims. A nutrient claim. Okay, those are the ones we went through at the beginning of the lecture. What's fat free? What's less sodium? There's health claims, like you see in the oatmeal here. There's a heart. Okay, as part of a heart healthy diet, the soluble fiber in oatmeal can help reduce cholesterol. There's an FDA approved health claim that links whole grains and cholesterol. Okay. Then lastly are the confusing ones called the structure function claims. This describes the effect that a substance has on the structure or the function of the body, but does not make reference to a disease. Okay, so they're basically implying, but not saying outright that there's an effect on a disease. Okay, so for example, you hear terms like this probiotic supports immunity and digestive health. Not going to prevent cancer, not going to prevent constipation. It just supports immunity and digestive health. Okay, so you hear or things like calcium helps build strong bones. I am not saying that my yogurt is going to prevent osteoporosis. I'm just saying that it supports your strong bones. Okay, the structure function claims are where a lot of health professionals take offense. Okay, they're ambiguous, but the FDA says they must be truthful and not misleading. Okay, they're confusing. I oftentimes wonder if that's intentional to the average consumer. Well, you're not saying osteoporosis, but I know that bones have something to do with osteoporosis. So if I buy this yogurt, maybe I won't get osteoporosis. Okay, so examples of structure function claims are things like calcium builds strong bones, fiber maintains bowel regularity, antioxidants maintain cell integrity. And I can tell you that food manufacturers take a lot of liberty with these structure function claims. They don't come out right and say any disease, but they make inference that this food is somehow related to something in your body that may help prevent or cure disease. Last up is the front of package labeling. In the United States, all you need to know is that industry regulates front of package labeling. They put out things like you see here, the facts up front, okay, from the Grocery Manufacturers Association, where they cherry pick nutrients from the side of the package that they want you to think are in somehow beneficial and would encourage you to buy this product, okay? It looks official with the font, okay, and all the numbers and the daily values, but the front of package labeling is regulated by the industry. Okay, and at the end of the day, when you walk down the cereal aisle, are all the boxes turned so the nutrition facts panel is facing you? No, of course not. All the boxes are turned so that the front of packaging stuff, the picture of the heart-shaped cereal bowl, these cherry-picked nutrients, okay, big statements about fiber or whole grains, that's what jumps out at you. The front of packaging is the commercial. The nutrition facts panel on the side, that's the table of contents that tells you what's really in the foods that you're eating.